have your name and your constituency. I want to thank everybody for their emails. I've had quite a few this morning, and I have to apologise because some of them were minutes before the meeting and I don't have time to be able to read all of your emails. I've also had complaints from people because emails have been sent using deputies' email addresses, which weren't for canvassing purposes. And I can see that there is a great deal of strength of feeling about this motion. Motion and debates, they are a critical part of the board's work. And this is how deputies become involved in policy and decision making. And it's very important when people have strong views that we have a chance to be able to discuss this. And we have to also bear in mind that the motion has been before the Community and Education Division. It passed by a very, very large majority, and it's gone through all of our democratic processes. Some people have written this morning wanting me to quash the motion, but I do not feel that that would be democratic, and I'm very, very reluctant to use that power for a matter that's drawn so much attention, where people want to have their say. And this is a democratic and representative body, and any attempt to quash motions, I think, has to be very, very carefully considered. Having said that, again, can I please remind people they are responsible for their own conduct and what they have to say. And please, can you all debate respectfully? I know that this is an area of major concern. We've all seen the front page news in the Jewish papers this month, and it clearly must be in the interests of the community for this to proceed. I know that people are having strong views, some are very upset, and again, can we engage with each other politely and use this as an opportunity to listen? All those speakers who notified the board that they want to speak by the deadline have been able to speak. Some people have asked to speak a long way past the deadline, and apologies to you, but I will not be able to accommodate everybody because we are simply not able to have time. What we're going to do is unmute people, so I will come and tell you the groups of people speaking. So when you're not speaking and you're waiting to speak, can you please make sure there isn't any background information? So the motion itself has been proposed by Joel Rosen, Deputy for UJS, and it has been seconded by Robert Stone, Deputy for Finchley Reform Synagogue. The motion reads as follows: the Board of Deputies hereby censures the Jewish National Fund UK, JNF UK, for failing to disavow the inflammatory and bigoted remarks of the chair, Samuel Hayek. So the speaking order, to start with, the first two speakers are going to have 3 minutes and all the other speakers 2 minutes. So Joel Rosen will speak first for 3 minutes. Maurice Lawson, the first speaker, will speak against for 3 minutes. And after that, the list will be the first few people: Gideon Smith, Robert Festenstein, Vivian Weinman, and Joe Millis. I've had some requests for people that have sent emails to everybody not to let them speak as well, but I think it's fair and democratic that they also have their right to speak. So can we please open with Joel Rosen? Thank you. I can't hear you.
Thank you, Maria. Good morning, deputies. My name is Joel Rosen, and I'm proud to be a deputy for UJS, which represents thousands of Jewish students across the country. I'm deeply saddened that my first formal address to deputies has to be on this motion. Like many of you, I've spent my entire life in the Jewish community. I treasure its institutions and values. Over recent weeks, we've seen the principles we all hold dear tarnished in the public sphere by a small, unrepresentative group. We've seen inflammatory rhetoric and racism from people in positions of power and responsibility. We've then seen denial, deflection, and intransigence. I'm sure deputies will have read today's motion and will be delving into the wording throughout this morning's debate. But I hope in the coming minutes just to provide a bit of background about the motion. This is a considered motion aimed at securing consensus. It offers us the chance to send a clear message that Islamophobia is not welcome within our community. It has passed by an overwhelming majority of the Communities and Education Division and reflects a compromise, common sense position. Now, some on the left, some young deputies, myself included, wanted the motion to go further. We tabled a motion that would have triggered procedural action. This motion does not do that. And there is a small minority of deputies on the right who don't want this motion debated at all, as you've just heard. It's my job to convince you that we should back this motion. And there's a simple reason why. And that reason is called, it is expressed in the values we will hold dear. And it's about empathy. Now, empathy requires a degree of imagination, but in this case, I would submit that it doesn't require any great leaps of the imagination. I, like many of you, first cut my teeth. My formative political experience was fighting anti-Semitism in the Labour Party. Then as now, we were told that a form of racism doesn't exist. Then as now, a minority community was othered. We had tropes of dual loyalty, and we were asked to sweep things under the rug for the greater good. It was wrong then, and it's wrong now. Then as now, our community spoke with one voice, making clear our opposition to racism. I would urge deputies to come together behind this common sense censure motion today and send a clear message to Muslim communities who have felt incredibly hurt by what they've seen in recent weeks. It's time to draw a line under this and send a clear and powerful message that bigotry is not welcome within our communal institutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker, Maurice Lawson, against. Could you please state your name and constituency? Can someone please unmute Maurice, please?
Right, okay. I'm Maurice Lawson, Deputy for Reading Hebrew Congregation. We have a group of deputies at this board wanting to censure the Jewish National Fund. Have you ever heard anything as bizarre as that? I won't spend time explaining again what the JNF does and for how long it has been doing it. That has already been done superbly in the emails sent to all deputies last week. But of course, there may be some people who would rather not see Israel supported too much. Thankfully, that is not the British Jewish community in general, which donates millions of pounds annually to the JNF. And the JNF then goes on to fund a huge number of projects in Israel, which benefit not only the country, but also the families in Israel of many of the people sitting here. Neither am I going to go through the lazy wording of the motion you have in front of you, which twists the context and deliberately seeks to misinterpret the words of the JNF's chairman. Samuel Hayek has already dealt with and fully explained his position publicly, which you may have seen in the JC. The JNF won't lose any sleep over this. They will go on doing their fantastic work, while deputies come and go and continue having inconsequential, politically motivated debates. Does anyone need to be worried about a possible censure of the JNF by the Board of Deputies? Well, yes, certainly. It's the Board of Deputies which needs to be worried. These kind of debates are not only irrelevant to the vast majority of the Jewish community, but passing a motion of this kind will most certainly backfire on this organisation and damage its reputation even further. So throw out this absurd motion. Don't let it tarnish the Jewish community. There's only one Jewish organisation which needs reprimanding for wasting its time on a ridiculous condemnation of this premier UK Jewish charity, and we are all here sitting in it.
Thank you. Can I remind someone, I'm waiting for the staff team to try and identify who it is. Someone is still called iPad, and if they don't change their name or contact the staff team, they won't be able to vote and they may be asked to leave the meeting. Gideon Smith, then followed by Robert Festenstein, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Marie. Gideon Smith, Hampton Garden Suburbs Synagogue. I'll be as short as I can. This is not a referendum on the JNF. This is not about whether the JNF is a good or bad organisation. This is about whether we want to express our disapproval of the comments of the JNF's chair and the trustees' failure to sufficiently condemn those comments. So, as I say, it's not about whether the JNF is good or bad. The JNF is an institution, a stalwart institution of the Jewish community. Most of us have the little blue box sitting in our homes. And notwithstanding the potential breach of GDPR and whether the email should have been sent, you can agree with everything that Lawrence Julius shared in his email to deputies. But this is about the impact Samuel Hayek's comments have on the reputation of the GNF and the knock-on impact on the wider community and the board. As Joel said in his opening remarks, as a community, we need to condemn Islamophobic and racist comments from within our community in the same way that we'd expect members of other communities and organizations to condemn anti-Semitism or individuals to make similar comments about the Jewish community. It undermines our work in fighting anti-Semitism. It undermines the reputation of the JNF and undermines all the work the JNF does in its support for Israel. So if you care about the JNF and if you care about our community, you should support the motion, and I would urge you to do so. Thanks.
Thank you. Robert Festenstein, followed by Vivian Weinman. Joe Millis no longer wants to speak, so Vivian will be followed by Joy Wolf. Robert.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. This motion is not part of a democratic process. It's an attempt to stifle debate on what today is the most serious issue as far as the board is concerned, and that's not Muslim anti-Semitism, but it's the right to have a view without being vilified. The purpose of this motion is to shut out anyone who has a contrary view. Now, over the last few weeks, entities on the internet have seen fit to rush to judgment about Mr. Hayek and condemned him as a racist. What concerns me is that we're being told that the motion is reasonable and sends a clear message to the Muslim community. There is a clear message, and that is the board, like many other organisations, are now moving to censoring those who are not promoting or agreeing the party line. In my email this morning, I wrote about other members of the community at a senior level, including the policy director of the CST, who have expressed concerns over anti-Semitism within the Muslim community. I fail to understand then if it is possible to bring this motion and condemn the JNF, that similar motions should not be brought against the CST or indeed the organisation Muslims Against Anti-Semitism or the Jewish Leadership Council, where the Code CEO, Claudia Mendoza, has made similar comments. This is not, in my view, a proportionate or reasonable motion. This is, as I said, this is censorship and an attempt to vilify someone who has put across a view that many people find objectionable and therefore don't want to debate it. They just want to shut out the debate so their own view can take precedence over anybody else's. This is a seminal time for the board, and it is crucial that this motion is defeated. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Next, please, Vivian, followed by Joy Wolf, followed by Jack Lubner, followed by Khaled Hassan. I can't hear Vivian. I don't know if anyone else can. No, Vivian, we can't hear you. No, I'm going to ask Vivian to let the next speaker speak, and you'll have to sort out your sound, Vivian. We can't hear you. Apologies. Can I go on, please, to Joy Wolf, and we'll come back to Vivian.
hear me?
Yes, I'm delighted to say we can, because I was wondering whether it was, don't take any time off Joy's time, please. Can you start the clock again for Joy? Can you start the clock? Thank you. We're going to start again. Over to you, Joy.
Thank you for allowing me to speak to this motion. You're the first speaker, I think it was Joel Rosen, spoke about tarnishing the image of the organisation. And if anything is tarnishing the image, in my opinion, it is having this type of debate and opening out community differences in the public arena and in social media. As has already been said, Samuel Hayek, who clearly, unfortunately, did not express himself very well on a topic that many people actually do have fears about. In the current anti-Semitic climate, there are fears for the future of the Jewish community and its place in society, but it should not be obviously directed in relation to the Muslims, or people should not be actually interpreting this as Islamophobia. I do not believe that we should be debating this. It isn't a matter of...
I think it's his headphones. I think it's his headphones.
It isn't a matter of censuring the JNF itself. It's censuring its chairman. And unfortunately, in the middle of this saga, we have lost a very valued deputy and a very valued vice president, who in the course of a very short time has proved himself to be so valuable. My concern is that there seems to be a group of deputies who have an anti-Israel agenda, who are prepared to dig the dirt on individuals and are prepared to attack and are currently attacking other Zionist deputies. This is something I think that the board has to be very careful of, to getting an image of having an anti-Israel agenda as some, and if I wanted to dig the dirt on some of the current deputies for their views on Israel and other...
Thank you, Joy. I think you've gone over the time limit. Can I just again remind deputies that you are responsible for what you say, and if there is anything said defamatory, you will be muted. I don't think that was the case with Joy. She reached the end of her time. Vivian Wyman, can I please ask you, the board team are telling me that they think it's your headphones. Can you please unplug your headphones and see if we can hear you? If not, I'm going to have to carry on and you'll have to try and sort it out. Vivian Wyman.
Can you hear me now?
We can. Over to you.
Okay. Fine, thanks. I've tried unmuting. Vivian Wyman, past president. Madam President, deputies, I want to obviously say some words in favour of the motion. The acid test, when we consider statements which we make about other communities, is to look about how we regard such statements were made about ourselves. If you transpose Muslims for Jews, put Jews in place of Muslims, how would we react? And it's not difficult to find the answer, because how did we react? About the beginning of the time that I became president of the board, shortly before, the deputy secretary of the Muslim Council of Britain, and this is not the GenSec, it was his deputy, signed a declaration which was anti-Semitic and anti-Western. And our reaction was that we would have nothing to do with the MCB until they repudiated him. And they all turned around and said they didn't agree with him, but he was speaking in a personal capacity. And all the other Muslim organizations said exactly the same thing, and that we should continue dialogue. We did not accept it. We said this is anti-Semitism, he should be out. And we ceased all connection with the MCB. And not only that, the government did as well. When people are in representative positions, freedom of speech does not entitle them to make racist statements. And if they do, the organizations which they represent must either repudiate them or face the consequences. It's unfortunate that Mr. Hayek has said this, but it clearly is damaging to intercommunal relations. The board has no option but to follow up with this motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jack Labner, Khalad Hassan, Jeremy Michelson and Thomas Spence. Over to you, please, Jack.
Good morning, everyone. Jack Labner, Aleph Synagogue. I think this is a very important motion, both in terms of the future of the board and our community. But before I want to start fully, I'd just like to clarify a few things. It was mentioned earlier that the comments by Samuel Hayek were some sort of mainstream view, that if we condemned, we should maybe condemn the CST as well. Well, just to give you a bit of context, the director of the CST called Samuel Hayek's comments appalling. Muslims Against Anti-Semitism, who wrote an article in the JC, condemned it as well. As you can see, as I think many of us know, it was also condemned on the front page of the Jewish News by the chief rabbi, and has had condemnation from across the Jewish community. So this is, it is very much on the outskirts of, I think, what we think is acceptable. So we have to have this discussion. I think there's no point saying that it's a waste of time or stifling this. It's been played out across the pages of the Jewish newspapers for weeks now. And for the Board of Deputies to have, to be true to its name, to have the leadership that the community looks to, we have to show it. And it's been said a few times already, but I just want to restate it. Over the past few years, the board has stepped up unbelievably to defend the interests of the community. And it's done so from a position of moral authority, calling on people in other communities to stand with us as we would stand with them. This is now our time to stand with them. And just a final point, which is the idea that this is motivated by anti-Israel or anti-Zionist sentiment, is nuts. I know all of the people speaking for this are proud Zionists and are motivated by one thing, anti-racism. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Khaled Hassan, Jeremy Michelson, Tomer Spence, and then Ruth Hart. And again, please, can you state your name, your full name and your constituency? And I'm told by the board team there are still some people that are not properly identified and you may be removed from the meeting. Next speaker, Khaled, we're over to you and welcome.
Thank you. Yes, hello everyone. Khaled Hassan from Darlington Hebrew Congregation. I think it's clear that my name is a Muslim name. I grew up and I was raised in Egypt amongst the Muslim community in a Muslim family. I think what we need to address here is the elephant in the room. Sadly, in most of Muslim countries, still the Holocaust is glorified or denied outright. I think we have a lot of studies and research that show that, unfortunately, within the rich Muslim community, anti-Semitism is at a terrifyingly high rate, including, to just mention a few, Dr. Rakib Hassan, a research fellow at the Henry Jackson Society, has done a lot of research on this, and it does show a concerning belief in conspiracy theories, anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, and amongst other anti-Semitic views. I think what we need to do is we need to also remember that as a board, our job is basically to serve Jews and their interests. I think we can see from the letter that was sent by the deputy, the colleague who proposed the motion, that the rhetoric was really quite inflammatory and divisive. I don't think we need to suggest BDS-like statements that we will totally boycott the JNF if they don't actually take action against Mr. Hayek, because again, like I said, this is pretty much a BDS kind of rhetoric and really divisive. I think from my side, we need to address the elephant in the room. Like I said, we need to address a lot of questions. We need to address why there hasn't been actually action from the Muslim community. We have had our own investigation into racial inclusivity in the Jewish community. I haven't seen, despite high-profile cases of attacks against Jews by Muslims, I haven't seen any proper investigations. I think this raises a lot of questions. And that's why, from my side, I am voting against this motion today, and I would urge you all to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeremy Michelson, please.
Hello, thank you very much. Jeremy Michelson, Manchester Great New and Central Synagogue. I accept a lot of the points that are made, particularly by the last speaker. There's no question about it. Muslim anti-Semitism has to be fought, but it can't be fought through, if you like, a comparative racism expressed by one of the leaders of one of our major organisations. And there's no question about it. I mean, the JNF has a wonderful past. It will have a great future. But we cannot have a situation where where one of our most important organisations, its leader expresses points of view that, as Vivian Wyman so ably pointed out, if they were expressed about Jews, we'd all be absolutely up in arms about it. The Board of Deputies has led the fight against anti-Semitism alongside the Jewish Leadership Council very ably for the last few years, and we will have, unless we are absolutely certain and condemn racism expressed from our midst, then we will lose all moral authority, we will lose all the right to speak out against racism wherever it comes from and whoever it is directed at. That's why I reluctantly but definitely suggest that you support this motion.
Thank you. Can I also say that I'm having a number of messages from people that would like to speak, and unfortunately, because we've got so many speakers, anybody who has asked to speak after the deadline, apologies, we're not able to accommodate that. Then many apologies, but we have had a deadline and the requests are a long way after that. So the next speaker, please, is going to be Thomas Spence, Ruth Hart, Adrian Cohen, and then Paul Jacobus. So over to you, Thomas.
Thank you. I'd like to highlight to deputies a case from just over a year ago when a senior staff member at one of the most established and impactful Muslim charities in the UK, Islamic World Relief, was found to have made anti-Semitic comments on social media. The charity's trustees immediately condemned his remarks. He was made to resign. And when it later emerged that another 2 trustees had made anti-Semitic comments, the entire board stood down and the charity commissioned an independent review led by the former Attorney General. I asked deputies to imagine how we would have felt if in the wake of those anti-Semitic comments, the charity's trustees had said nothing. If the offending trustees had been allowed to remain in post without even saying sorry or recanting their remarks. If they dismissed criticism by highlighting the work that the charity does, as if the comments of its leaders don't matter. And if in the wake of all of that, the British Muslim community's leading organisations had simply turned a blind eye and done nothing. I know that none of us would have felt that was acceptable, and that's the situation we face with the JNF. The charity's board is failing to act against Islamophobia, and as the Jewish community's leading organisation, which does care about racism and realises that we need to set a standard against Islamophobia, we can't stay silent either. This isn't a boycott of the JNF. It isn't a criticism wholesale of what the JNF is doing. It's about setting a standard against racism that we want others to set for our community as well. And that's why it's really important that we pass this centre today.
Thank you. The next speaker, please, is Ruth Hart, then Adrian Cohen, Paul Jacobus, and Tessa Milligan. Ruth.
Ruth Hart, Bournemouth Reform Synagogue. I can't speak for a former deputy who can't defend himself here, nor for the original target of this motion, who is not even a deputy. However, I oppose this motion on the grounds that, one, we would have to equally censure deputies or organisations which persist in undermining the welfare of the Jewish community by allying with those who hate Israel or Jews anywhere in the world, often in the guise of anti-racism, but making a special exception for Jews, or two, that the poorest people in Israel who benefit from the work of the JNF, and everyone knows what the JNF does, they do not deserve to become collateral damage in the latest iteration of the culture wars, in which the alleviation of poverty and discrimination becomes subject to an ideology which sounds progressive and inevitably ends up totalitarian. And to my colleagues in MRJ Shores, I say that members of Bournemouth Reform Synagogue would be horrified if I suggested boycotting JNF UK, and that such behaviour would truly bring all of us into disrepute.
Thank you. Adrian Cohen, Paul Jacobus, Tessa Milligan, and then Jonathan Brodie. Adrian.
Thank you, thank you very much, President. Adrian Cohen, Deputy for Highgate United Synagogue. First of all, I just want to say I'm speaking in support of the motion, but I also do actually agree with most of what Khaled said, and I, for one, would never want to downplay the issue of anti-Semitism in the Muslim world. But I mean, I'd also say that I had the privilege a month ago of being in a Peshmerga base in Kurdistan in northern Iraq, and to meet the brave Peshmerga soldiers who have been fighting ISIS. And I met amongst those people who had family members who had fallen to ISIS. And just within the 2 weeks that I was in that camp, the Peshmerga had lost 20 members to attacks by ISIS insurgents. And I have to show you that all of those people knew that I was Jewish, and actually they were supportive of the Jewish people. And there's a lot of respect for Israel too. So my concern is that all of these generalized comments about Muslims to cover up the fact, obscure the fact that we do have allies within the Muslim world, as the Abraham Accords have also demonstrated. And the problem with comments which generalize about Islam and Muslims is that they not only obscure that fact, but as other people have said here, they subvert the very values that we wish to promote, which is anti-racism, that we have to strike back against stereotyping and generalizations and sloppy language. And it's not good enough to say, well, someone said something and they didn't really mean it, because that's the very thing that people used as a defense in the Labour Party when they talked about Jews and when they used anti-Semitic tropes. We have to, as other people said here, be consistent in the way in which we deal with racism. And finally, this isn't.
Thank you. The next speaker is Paul Jacobus, and can I just explain that as a reasonable adjustment, he's going to be given up to 30 seconds extra to speak. Paul has said that I can tell you that he has dyslexia, and I'm very sympathetic to anyone who needs extra time to speak if they have a disability, and I myself have a paralysed vocal cord, so I'm very, very supportive of people coming forward. So over to you, and thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Marie. It saddens me to be doing this today. It saddens me to be speaking on this side of the debate. It saddens me that some might misinterpret my speaking as support for these comments. No, there's only two reasons I'm against this. Firstly, to dispute the specifics of the motion, and secondly, to ask if the motion is in the board or the community's interest. So firstly, let's examine the specifics. The motion asks for the JNF to disavow and the board to censure. The definition of disavow is to deny any responsibility or support. The JNF have already made a statement saying, and I quote, "In expressing his recent views, Mr. Hayek did not speak for the charity or its trustees." In other words, they have already disavowed the comments. I ask, if the requirements of the motion have been fulfilled, why is it being pursued? I understand people's anger over the comments made by Samuel Hayek, but this is nothing to do with the motion, which is focused on the JNF. This motion is akin to punching a bystander in a fight, simply because you can't get to the person you actually want to hit. Secondly, this has been a disastrous few weeks for the board. We have witnessed leaks to journalists, lowering the reputation of the very board we profess to care about. And not only has the board's reputation been lowered, individuals involved feel bullied, harassed, and broken. Regardless of the rights or wrongs, this is a shameful outcome. And by continuing to pursue this issue, we now face a possibility that member organisations will leave, undermining the board's claim of being representative. I will be blunt in my summation. The motions seem narrowly as wrong, as it focuses on the wrong target. The motions seem broadly as not in the communal interest, but this has been ignored by the president, who chose not to exert their veto. My community is incredulous that deputies are focused on this rather than focused on the threats to Jewish life in Britain. We need to reject this motion, not because we agree with Mr. Hayek, but because as deputies, we need to show our constituencies that we are doing our utmost to focus on what matters to them. And to be frank, this is not it.
Thank you, Paul. The next people to speak are going to be Tessa Milligan, Jonathan Brodie, Benjamin Huglin, and then Ido Ben-Shor. So over to you, Tessa.
Thank you, Marie. Tessa Milligan, Yahad. I have to start what I'm about to say by asking for forgiveness for being emotional this morning. I didn't appreciate the email which went out as someone who's lost a friend to suicide a few years ago. It was something which really didn't set me up in a good way for this motion. This motion passed through the Communities and Education Division overwhelmingly. That is democratic. This debate and subsequent vote, however it pans out, is a democratic forum, contrary to an earlier assertion in this discussion. There is no boycott here. Deputies have the right and freedom to condemn that which they disagree with. This isn't about party lines, as has been asserted. It's not about left or right. It is about right and wrong. In terms of how the board institutionally responds to the key issues here, is the damage I feel that these behaviours have done to the board's reputation and to the Muslim community. Personally, I still haven't heard an apology at all throughout this saga. The key aspect is that we hold ourselves and others to good standards. Vivian was absolutely right to ask us to consider this motion by thinking about how we might feel if the shoe was on the other foot. Would what has transpired since these comments be enough? For me, it is not enough. I understand if others feel differently, but I think the board's reputation and our incredible work as an organisation, the board's interfaith work especially, and the standards that we hold ourselves and others to has to be the priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Tessa. And can I say that I am really sorry for your loss, and also that I'm really sorry that a reference in the email caused you to be distressed, and I really am very, very sorry about that. And thank you for having the courage to continue talking. Thank you. So Jonathan Brodie, please, Benjamin Huglin, and then Ido Ben-Shor.
Good morning, Jonathan Brodie, Deputy for Kingsbury Synagogue. Samuel Hayek and the JNF trustees have claimed that he was speaking in a personal capacity, but to paraphrase Mandy Rice Davis, they would, wouldn't they? I certainly don't believe it to be the case. When Marie appeared on Question Time, she was not invited because the producers felt they hadn't had enough lawyers on the programme, nor was she invited because she was randomly selected from the electoral register. She was invited because she is the president of the board. She spoke on the programme in that capacity, not in a personal one. If another broadcaster had got in touch with her after the programme, and asked her to clarify or expand on anything she'd said during it, that would have also been in her capacity as president, not in a personal capacity. Samuel Hayek was in Israel with a delegation of JNF UK donors to visit a number of the organisation's projects and to inaugurate one of them. During the visit, he was interviewed by Jerusalem Post. He was not picked at random by the newspaper for a vox pop, but because of his position as chair of JNF UK. It's quite possible that the interview was not initiated by the newspaper, but by the charity who saw it as a way of getting some positive PR. After all, a couple of the paragraphs in the article are devoted descriptions of JNF UK projects. At some point after it appeared in the Jerusalem Post, the article was published on the JNF UK website. The only conclusion that I can draw from these facts is that Samuel Hayek was speaking to Jerusalem Post in his capacity as chair of the organisation and not in a personal one. And when he was contacted by the JNF, by the Jewish News, as a follow-up to that, he was also speaking in the capacity as chair. I hope that you will also draw the same conclusion as myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Benjamin Huglin, Ido Ben-Shor, Amos Schomfeld, and then Josh Lee. And user called iPhone was removed from the meeting because they could not be identified. They've tried to come back, and apologies. If you want to make your name known to the board team, they will let you in, but we can't let in an unknown user. Benjamin.
Hi, Victor Huglin, member for Allerton, Liverpool. Very interesting debate. I would just like to say that as far as I've heard, Mr. Hayek was speaking as an individual, not as a representative of the JNF, and the JNF made it very clear that they disavowed with his views. If over the years people have disagreed with Rabbi Sachs and Rabbi Mervis for inappropriate remarks that they have actually said over the years, the organizations are not disciplined. And in my opinion, we have had a week of major terrorist attacks, anti-Semitic terrorist attack in America. We've had the case of the lady from Grenfell, high rates of anti-Semitism, and we're discussing the disciplinary action of an individual member. The JNF is one of the oldest, most popular Zionist organizations in the country, and many of us got our first love of Zionism with the traditional blue boxes. In my opinion, we should be spending our time discussing anti-Semitism, anti-Israel education on the universities, media organizations, and even at a football match the other week, there was chants from the Spurs supporters of Yid Army. There's been no talk of what this does and the follow-on effects of other fans. Even at Anfield the other week, I heard the Brentford fans starting to chant Yid Army or anti-Israel, which is a follow-on from the Spurs supporters. We don't discuss that. We don't discuss that at all. I think it's disingenuous of us to even discuss this matter, and we should be discussing things that are much more relevant to our community. To me, it appears right out of Alice in Wonderland. And whilst people mean well, I think we need to get real and discuss what is right in front of our faces today.
Thank you. Ido Banshaw, Amos Schonfeld, Josh Lee.
Ido Banshaw, Reform Judaism. Firstly, I'm supporting this motion as I see it as an appropriate and dignified response to the recent scandal stemming from Mr. Hayek's comments. I do not accept the argument that he made that these are personal views and thus do not reflect the JNF position. As a seasoned CEO, we should accept that everything he says publicly may and would be seen, if not as the view of the JNF, then as a view endorsed by the JNF. After publication, I refrained from condemning the JNF, hoping that its trustees would denounce these views and censor Mr. Hayek. They didn't. Yet, these views cannot be tolerated by the BOD and stand in contrast to the board's mission statements, so we cannot afford ignoring the matter. At the same time, asking the JNF to leave the board cannot be justified at this point, especially as the guidelines governing what is accepted and what is not of a deputy or a member organization are murky and in need of revision. This is a good reminder that this revision is long overdue. So censoring the JNF should be seen in my mind as a serene warning. Basically, we must demonstrate that we do have some basic principles. Hayek resorted to conspiracy theories that scarily looked very similar to some dark anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. We cannot fight against the latter and accept the first. Second, I want to repeat something that I preached for years no end. We should all be very careful when using social media. I do not condone the digging out of some ancient and
I don't know. I think Ido's being denied some of his time. Could the board team please let him speak for another, I think it was 28 seconds. No, actually, I'm wrong. I'm sorry. Apologies. He's had his correct time. Apologies. Next, please, Amos Schonfeld. I'm told that Josh Lee no longer wishes to speak. Therefore, Jessica Baker next. We are running very, very behind, so I hope that we can make up some time afterwards. Thank you. Over to you, Amos Schonfeld.
Thank you, Marie. Amos Schonfeld, Deputy, former Sorted Judaism. I've heard some very strange equivalences here today. I've heard the equivalence that to be a pro-Israel deputy is to be silenced by this motion, that to be concerned about aspects of the Muslim community or aspects of even fringe elements of the Muslim community means to be challenged by this motion, as if the only way one can be a Zionist, the only way one can be pro-Israel, the only way one can be concerned about the Muslim community is to show anti-Muslim sentiment and to be Islamophobic. This is just simply bizarre. Anyone who holds any of these badges to themselves, the idea that you are pro-Israel means that you have to ascribe to this is nonsense. We have to put down some norms, and a norm that should exist within our community, and I'm scandalized that it's not yet in place, is that we cannot be Islamophobic. We cannot show anti-Muslim sentiment. We are at a moment where we can make a crucial decision that will affect the future of our community for the better, because it will safeguard our fight against anti-Semitism, give us the legitimacy to fight anti-Semitism in the future. Unless we forget what is being said here. Samuel Hayek went and said that immigration that is motivated and guided by the rules of Islam is violent, that he does not want to, that they do not want to integrate into Britain's process of thinking, that the white Christian majority is threatened by Muslim immigration. When he posted something to the Jewish Chronicle, when it was in the Jewish Chronicle, I didn't see the words sorry, I didn't see the word apology in there, because he wasn't sorry and he wasn't apologetic. He was seeking cover. We should know much better than to somehow get involved in that game. We can do a simple thing, which is to say, we do not stand with this. We will censure this, and that is the end. We'll draw a line under this. There is no boycott here. There is no further action. We are simply expressing dismay at the current direction of the Jewish National Fund, which for many people holds a special place. And the fact that it's been reduced to this shell is embarrassing, and that we should be scandalized at that incident. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So next up will be Jessica Baker, Lawrence Julius, and Robert Stone. Thank you. Jessica.
Thanks very much, Marie. Jessica Baker, Union of Jewish Students. Sorry, I haven't spoken yet this morning. A bit croaky. The speakers against have tried to make this an issue of censorship rather than one of solidarity with Muslims against Islamophobia. But as an ex-interfaith officer for the Leeds Jewish Society, I can't avoid thinking about the incredible friendships I formed with members of the Muslim societies on campus. We supported them on Islamophobia just as they supported us on anti-Semitism. Samuel Hayek's comments fly in the face of every experience I've had with these friendships, which was one of solidarity and understanding. And so to sit on the board makes me proud, but to know that I sit on it with an organisation who failed to condemn Islamophobia makes me feel deeply uncomfortable and absolutely needs to change. To know that my Muslim friends are seeing this happening and seeing our community ignoring the discrimination against them makes me feel even worse. Please don't let arguments about censorship or slippery slopes persuade you away from the basic fact that, as Amos just said, and I fully agree with, we need to take a really clear stance against Islamophobia, just as we would expect any other organisation to take a clear stance against anti-Semitism. I hope that this motion passes, and I hope it encourages the JNF to take a clear stance against Islamophobia so that it can continue focusing on its work. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we're now going to come to the closing speakers, Lawrence Julius and Robert Stone. Thank you. Lawrence.
Hi, Lawrence Julius Harries. I became reacquainted with what the JNF does about 5 years ago. I saw firsthand what it's doing to transform the periphery and mixed cities, helping the disadvantaged and impoverished, working for all Israelis, Jews and Arabs. It made me want to be part of it, and I'm now a trustee alongside a small group of very hard-working volunteers. The JNF UK resonates with all the principles and values we share, creating a better society for all Israelis. While the central and northern areas of Israel are well supported by numerous charities, the Negev has received significantly less support, and this is where JNF UK really makes a difference. A few examples: a special needs school for children in Beersheba for children with serious disabilities and autism, serving all the Negev, Jews and Bedouins. A brand new rocket-proof school under construction in Sderot, where children can continue in education in safety when the town comes under attack. Recladding reservoirs, impact investment for New Olim in housing and support to make their Aliyah successful. These are the great things it does. It doesn't plant forests, it only operates in Israel, and it's not engaged in anything controversial. JNF UK support is about not just about focusing on projects, it's about striving to engage with everybody, Jews and Arabs, building relationships, transforming lives, and creating a sustainable future. JNF UK has a strong reputation, it's been around for 120 years. Please show your support for what JNF UK does by voting against this motion. We all need to unite on the challenges we face and not feed our enemies with ammunition. Our plenary time is limited, we need to be focused. If this motion is passed, I believe the BOD will be the big loser. I should also stress I'm very active in Interfaith in London, working with the local Muslim community, working the head of the SACRA, involved in a lot of initiatives, and I have not heard any feedback from this article at all. I repeat, please support JNF UK by voting against the motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lawrence. I was told that Josh Lee didn't want to speak, and I can see a hand up, but no picture of him. Josh, did you want to speak, please? We're just going to hold for a few seconds to see if Josh answers. Hi, Josh. Can someone unmute Josh, please? Hello, Josh. I was told that you didn't want to speak. Is that incorrect? Would you like to speak?
Can you hear me? It's not letting me.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Would you like to speak? I was told that you didn't want to.
I would like to speak if that's possible.
Run the clock. Apologies, Josh.
Good morning, everyone. Lovely to be with you virtually, of course. Hopefully one day this can be in person. I don't wish to address the comments of Samuel Hayek specifically, but I would like to comment on the way this whole process has gone about. The entire process of bringing this motion and the one that we're not seeing today, and we're not debating, has been nothing short of intimidation tactics and coercion. The board, as we all know, actually has no remit in condemning communal organisations. It's not what the majority of the community expects to be done in their name. And if the board had real accountability procedures, this probably wouldn't be taking place. This entire ordeal has, from its outset, had nothing to do with Samuel Hayek and everything to do with Gary Mond. It's part of the continued campaign that we've seen of entryism and trying to distort the numbers so that the election goes in a favour of a certain group. Or someone spoke about certain small niche interest group. I think it was the first speaker today. I think that's quite funny. Gary has been sidelined by the top table since the very day one and kept out of conversations. And this entire thing was an attempt to rerun the election where Gary won senior vice president by the most amount of votes. Now, we know this because they waited, the organised campaign behind all these motions and all the leaks to the press, waited till the day of the communities division, of which Gary would have normally chaired, to torpedo him with these claims and likes of comments from 7 years ago, or an anti-Semite that I actually hadn't even heard of myself before. And by doing that, they did it to tarnish his name and commit a character assassination upon him. We all know Gary. Most of us know that he's a perfectly pleasant man and has probably never spewed any Islamophobic comments in front of us either. It's literally a real disgrace that the whole idea of GDPR is coming from people who send out their own emails continuously. This is really upsetting. Vote against this motion.
I think I have to say on behalf of the honorary officers, I was borderline, I think, for removing Josh speaking, but the honorary officers have not sidelined Gary. He's been absolutely included, and he had a division especially designed for all of the areas that he wanted to do, and a great deal of time and care was put in there, and that's a disservice, I think, to say that. Robert Stone, please. Are you there, Robert? Can't unmute. He's got even put up a sign.
Work now. It's work now. So, as Gideon Smith said, this motion has nothing to do with the work of the JNF. It is not, as Joy Wolf said, an anti-JNF conspiracy. I acknowledge everything Lawrence Julius said about the work of the JNF. We are commanded in the book of Leviticus to rebuke our neighbor. The 1917 says you shall reprove your neighbor, and 1918 says you should love them. I love the JNF, I love the work they do, I love Israel, I am a Zionist, and because they are my friends, I am following the Torah in seconding this motion to rebuke them, to censure them. In Victor Hewlin and others said that he is speaking in his personal capacity. He says that in his defense, but if you look at the Jerusalem Post and the Jewish News and the Jewish Chronicle, the headline is always chair of JNF. It's always chair of JNF. He's quoted as JNF, so therefore the JNF should have distanced themselves from what he said. By the way, the definition of the word disavow, which is what we asked, contrary to, I can't remember who said we didn't get it right, the Oxford English Dictionary includes to refuse to be associated with, to refuse approbation of, to disown or to repudiate. Whereas the JNF did not repudiate those remarks, and neither did Hayek himself repudiate him saying that Islam has no word for peace, or that the white Christian majority is shrinking. He has not denied any of this. By the way, for your information, Surah 53 of the Quran makes salam one of the names of God. They have no word for peace. It's one of the names of God. This whole thing is nothing to do with the JNF as an organization. It's to do with their refusal to disavow the Islamophobic remarks of Hayek.
Thank you. Now, a lot of the speakers have talked about the JNF, and I've been sent a message that JNF Scotland would like me to read out. So I shall read out part of their message. JNF KKL Scotland distances itself from the recent remarks made by Samuel Hayek, chairman of JNF UK, with reference to English Muslims. JNF KKL Scotland operates independently as part of the worldwide JNF KKL family, raising funds for project in Israel and sent directly and exclusively to KKL JNF in Jerusalem. So I've read that out for JNF Scotland. Thank you. We're now going to proceed to the vote. We're going to have to ask, and many apologies to under 35 observers or any observers. The staff team are now going to put those people in the waiting room. Can the staff team let me know, please, when we're ready? And if people have only got iPad as a user, or they're not properly identified, you're not going to be able to vote. So we've tried to give you warning. There are still a couple of people, and there are 3 people late joining the meeting now that have been admitted.
Hi, this is Lauren here. For all the hosts of the meeting, please can you not let in anyone that's been put in the waiting room? Thank you. Just for reference, it's the observers while we vote.
Apologies. I'm getting some messages I can't see where to vote. The vote is not yet starting because we're still removing under 35 observers into the waiting room. When we can vote, the poll will come up on all of your screens, and I hope it does come up. There may be 1 or 2 people, we've had this before, including me, where the poll hasn't come up, and I really hope that doesn't happen to anybody today. Could the staff team tell us how long? Right, if you'll forgive me, I'm just going to go on mute and I'm going to contact the staff team. So could you bear with me? Thank you. Thank you. Apologies. I'm told that we're still waiting. I hope it won't be too long.
Okay, everyone, I'm just launching the vote now. It should come up on your screen.
Perhaps someone can tell me, oh, here we go, it's on here. So the Board of Deputies hereby censures the Jewish National Fund UK, JNF UK, for failing to disavow the inflammatory and bigoted remarks of its chair, Samuel Hayek, and you can vote either in favour or against. So please, can you do so? Okay, thank you. I'm waiting for the poll to come back. I can see that Bruce has put his hand up. So I'm sorry, Bruce, I didn't want to interrupt everybody voting. I don't know if you mean your hand to be up, if it's a point of order. If it is, could you contact the staff team? Thank you. Thank you. Apologies for the wait. I'm just waiting for the poll. Okay, can you please put the poll up on screen for everybody that's here? The outcome. I've just been notified, so I can tell you the outcome, but I'd much rather it comes up on screen. I'm told it's 133 in favour and 75 against and 208 voted, but I want to see, can the staff team please put the poll up on screen so that people can see it? I'm just going to, oh, here we go. Thank you. I think it's very important that everybody has visibility of this, because we've had issues before where people have had concerns. I'm just going to take a copy of it. So there we are, 64% in favour and 36% against. Very, very similar to voting patterns for the Constitution and previous voting, but in this case, it's a vote of 50% that's needed. So the notice of censure will be prepared and will be served upon JNF UK. So that will go back to the executive. So I'm going to stop sharing details of the vote. I hope everybody's got the details that they want from it. Okay. And if you haven't, I have now got a screenshot of that. So thank you. Can I thank everybody for the debate? I know it was very, very difficult. I'd like to congratulate all of these speakers. I think you all spoke very well. I acted today. I didn't give my opinions. I think it was very, very important that deputies had their say, and there was an overwhelming sense of feeling. We are going to finish at 12:30, and it's now 11:40. So can I ask deputies to bear with us? We won't have a great deal of time to go through other areas which I think are very important. So let's go to the President's report, and I would like to give an update about the BBC. It's going to be a short update. I want to be able to confirm that on Tuesday, the 18th of January, we did have a meeting with the Director General, Tim Davie, and other senior BBC executives. We have strongly advocated our position with regard to the BBC's misreporting of the Oxford Street attack, and we have subsequently engaged in further correspondence with the Director General about that anti-Semitic attack. We expect to hear back from the BBC with a definitive answer this week, and then we will provide deputies with a more detailed statement. So I just wanted to be able to give that update, and of course we take this very, very seriously. So I think it's most important to get the right results. So if you can bear with us, that would be great. We'd also like to thank Lord Mann, who after our meeting also had his meeting with the BBC. So we look forward to hearing shortly. So can I go straight to questions on the President's statement, because we don't have very much time. So I think first up was Louise Ellman. You're on mute. Thank you.
Unmuted. Louise Ellman, Jewish Labour Movement, and thank you, President, for those comments. I'm very pleased to see of the resolute stand that you're taking against continuing anti-Semitism from wherever it comes. And I think we should reflect a bit on the position that the board has taken in recent times. I'm pleased about the decision we've just taken. The board has recently spoken out very strongly against the Borders and Nationality Bill. It has supported the Uyghurs. It has shown its backing for refugees. And this places the Jewish community where it should always be, on the side of justice and against racism in all its forms. Can I have an assurance that this will continue under your presidency?
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Thank you. We are getting a lot of questions, and can I just say, with the greatest of respect, because of the motion, I'm not going to be able to probably take all of the questions. So I saw there was Susan Pascoe was next. Susan, and you can either have a question or make a statement. Can we make sure the clock is on, please? Thank you. Susan.
Thank you, Marie. Sorry, it wouldn't allow me to unmute. Susan Pascoe, Neas Trail Community. So I want to echo thanks as well for the very strong stance taken by the board against anti-Semitism, wherever it arises. Two questions. One, I know you raised the bus attack with the BBC. Did you raise its reportage of the Texas gunman and any other issues as well, which are of huge concern to the Jewish community? And my second point, also in relation to the Texas shul gunman, is we sadly saw the intense hatred he had for the Jewish people, Jewish community. And in terms of short-term and long-term planning for the Board of Deputies work, it demonstrates how vitally important it is for the Board of Deputies to restart its work, enabling school children of all faiths and no faiths to see Jewish life, meet other Jewish children, go to the Jewish Way of Life exhibition. All that work sadly stopped at the beginning of the pandemic. and the staff member who used to organise all that was made redundant. So I know obviously it would link, and there's nothing about it in the Communities and Education Division report about plans for all that to restart, but it's vitally important in addition to all the other interfaith work that the board undertakes. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a lot in there. I'm not going to give details of the meeting because I want to make sure that we go through a process with the BBC. Of course, I mentioned the Texas massacre, just so that you're aware of that. So thank you for that. We are currently looking at our board plan. We're going to wait until we've got the new vice president of the Communities and Education Division, but absolutely the Jewish Living exhibition, working with schools, is really, really important. So thank you for that. We have got a lot of people now and we don't have enough time. I'm going to ask for speakers that haven't spoken. I think it's important to be fair about this. I'm sorry. Jay Chirara, please give your name and constituency. Thank you.
Jay Chirara, Deputy for the Jewish Representative Council of Greater Manchester and Regions. Thank you, Madam President. I commend the stance that you take in fighting anti-Semitism generally. Recently, the Jewish Representative Council was instrumental in bringing Councillor Ron Cooper's suspension for saying that Keir Starmer follows, and I quote, commands from Israel. We know that local elections are approaching fast, and I further note that the board has launched its Excellence Manifesto for London and regions. However, elections, as we know, are a time of divisions and tensions do run high. My question and my concern is the board prepared and ready for the upcoming elections, and what programs are in place through the manifesto and so on? Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. I think that probably is a question for Andrew Gilbert and Amanda, but yes, we are ready for the elections, and we will of course work with all of our communal colleagues to make sure of that, rest assured. Can I also thank Josh Lee, because I did misspeak, and I'd like to thank him for pointing out I did not mean the Texas massacre. I of course meant the Texas shooting, so I just want to make that very clear. I can only take 2 more questions because we are going to run out of time. I'm not taking questions from anybody that has spoken because it's not fair, because there are people that haven't, so I'm really sorry. Michael Reich, you haven't spoken. We can't hear Michael. Please, no one else put their hands up, because no other questions will be taken from the people on the screen, and it won't be anyone that's spoken. We'll have to come back to Michael if he can't be unmuted. Staff team, can you unmute Michael? Right, there's obviously a problem. So can we move on to Murray, please, from Reform Judaism? Can we unmute Murray?
Hello, my name is Murray. I'm from the Movement for Reform Judaism. Certain people throughout this debate have been saying that the Board of Deputies shouldn't really be focusing on Islamophobia. It's not really important. It's not like anti-Semitism. I come from a perspective that it's very important that we did focus on it today, because if we as a board have a bad reputation, how can we fight anti-Semitism properly? Because people would say, why should we take any notice of what the board has to say? The board is enshrined with Islamophobia, and that would not do us or the Jewish community justice around the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being very concise. Paul Moran. Can we unmute Paul?
Can I be heard?
Yes, over to you.
Okay. The headlines of the Jewish Telegraph are: community quits council, that's Skojek, over its chief executive position, that's Efrem Borowski. And the headline says, Aberdeen's Skojek row, because Aberdeen have withdrawn from Skojek. And that is because of the way in which, according to the Aberdeen Jewish community, that it has not been open and it hasn't been professional in the manner in which it has been working. It's important because it's talking about the future of Scottish Jewry. At its AGM in June 20, Alan Kay was elected. As a result, the relationship with the board became very good, and I pay tribute to the Board of Deputies for the general grants which they have offered for us. Chair, it is serious. The information given out about the future of our community in Scotland is dependent on the quality of our leadership. That leadership, not least through Nicola Livingstone, has been appalling. And it is important that we actually manage to do something about this nationally. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. The last speaker is going to be Denise Lester. I apologise to everyone else. I did say we cannot have any additional speakers because we are not going to get any other reports. And after this, we need to approve the minutes of the executive and we need to do the voting for the election. So apologies. Denise, can you please be as brief as you can?
Yes, Denise Lester, South Hampstead United Synagogue. Madam President and fellow deputies, I'd like to commend everybody that's spoken today and also for you for chairing a very important, significant event. I want, however, to speak principally about the issues with the BBC. It's a very brave president and it's a very brave and courageous and fearless organisation that takes on and challenges and seeks to hold our leading broadcaster, the BBC, to account. And also on the government has conjoined in this regard. With regard, the Culture Secretary has said that the BBC needs to effectively deal with the issue of its reporting, not only for the Jewish community, but for the wider community. And it certainly seems to me with not only the incident on the bus and the reporting there, but also with the nuancing of the reporting of the very serious incident in the States last week, that there needs to be an educative programme amongst the journalists and for the journalists dealing with the harder issues, in particular the conflation between why Jewish people are targeted by certain segments of the Islamic community and wider community. We are a peace-loving ethnic group, and our relations with external groups, including condoning Islamophobia in all its forms, show how, in the pursuit of justice, we are and we should be for all groups, and thus the wider.
Thank you. I've got to apologise to anybody who hasn't spoken. We also lost Michael. I'm going to apologise that I have to move on because we are not going to finish. We've only got half an hour. I want to send my apologies and we will try and get everybody on next time. What I need to do now is we need to move on, please, to a poll, because we are going to be holding the vice presidential elections online. I really hope that this is going to be the last election where we have to do this, but we will need to temporarily amend parts of the Constitution to allow this. And this, of course, was done for the elections last year and we have just updated the resolutions for the timings and the calendar. If there are any questions about the election, Ben or the Constitution Committee can answer it. I'm going to let Ben come on, but it's only for 30 seconds because other people need to present their reports. Ben, and then we will have the poll.
Yes, just to very quickly say, obviously the Constitution envisages that we do elections in person or with a postal ballot for people who can't attend meetings. This motion, as with the election we had last year, basically has an electronic poll which opens the morning of the plenary, runs through to the next day in case there are technical issues, and devolves power to the executive if there are any issues. I know there's a lot of individual bullet points, but it basically does exactly what it did last year, with the exception that because we have slightly less time between obviously Gary's resignation and when we have to have the election, we've also snipped by 4 days the limit to get stuff out. Yeah.
Thank you. Could we please have the poll up? And apologies to everybody, but we're so short of time. And again, apologies to anyone that couldn't speak. And if you remind me, if you couldn't speak, you can speak first next time. Can we please have the poll?
Okay, we're just putting the under 35 observers into the waiting room.
Thank you. Thank you, team. Thank you. The poll should be up. Apologies if anyone has not got the poll. So do you approve the resolution for electronic voting? I have to say, I can't see the actual resolution on screen. I'm giving my vote, but it may be that it should go up. Board team. I'm told there is a huge majority, but I would like still to have the resolution to go up, or I will just say, as there has been, I'm told, a huge majority that the resolution was for electronic voting, a simple resolution at the forthcoming election for the Vice President, and that the relevant section of the Constitution be suspended. Ben, do you have the resolution to read out? Ben, can someone unmute Ben, please?
I can read it. Do you approve the resolution on electronic voting?
That's very straightforward. Okay, and what is the outcome, please?
94% in favour, 6% against.
Thank you. I have to wonder why 6% would be against that in this awful situation where we can't meet in person, but that is overwhelming. We are, of course, all doing our best, and if anyone can't vote, I know the board team will be there to do everything that they can to help you. So thank you for that. That is overwhelming. Thank you. A bit of housekeeping that I didn't do. I don't think is you've got the executive minutes. I haven't got any more comment on the meeting of the board minutes from last time. So I'm now going to go on to the reports. We are only going to have a few minutes, and please be very gracious to our two vice presidents who are standing in today for their vice presidents. So can we have Jonathan Cole, please, who's from Westminster Synagogue, who is the vice chair of the International Division. So over to you and welcome, Jonathan.
Thank you, Marie. Jonathan Cole, Westminster Synagogue. In the interest of time, I won't go over the report that was circulated, other than to congratulate Talia Ingleby and David Mendoza-Wolfson for some great work, very active. What's not in the report is that we're in different stages of launch of 5 working groups. Some are a little bit more issues-based, and some of them are more community liaison-based. We have UN monitoring, global media monitoring, Jewish pluralism in Israel, Commonwealth, and our rolling regional group, which has decided to focus on Poland. For the Commonwealth, I would urge any individuals, deputies, observers who have contacts or knowledge or interest to let us know about it, because obviously we're going to need to work closely with people, and to the extent we have these contacts, we'd love to leverage them. In terms of the Eastern Europe Poland group, I would like to provide a thanks to two deputies who were not elected to the division, who have made really substantial contributions, and just urge all deputies who have an interest to step forward like Lawrence Ray and William Baginski have done. They've actually provided written notes before the meetings. They've been very diligent and extremely professional. I'd love to see also some under 35 observers, for example, or Jews of color, or anybody who feels that they have a voice that could be helpful to these working groups, so that we can have the full range of voices of all the members of our Jewish community added to this great work that's been done. With that, I'll leave it and open for questions if there are any.
You're lucky. You have Jerry Lewis and then Deanna.
Yes, can you hear me?
It's a terrible echo.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Right. Just 2 points. One, housekeeping, and I'm sorry to bowl a googly at you. It is custom and practice, and I did raise this with the president earlier, for each division to show who attends the meetings. All the other divisions manage to do so. The report doesn't show who's been attending your divisional meetings. Could you raise this with the chair of the meeting and make sure that the missing information is given? And the question I have for you, any progress to report now that the borders are going to be reopened on any board trip to Israel? Thank you.
We have meeting minutes that show everybody who's there, and they're not in the report. It's a separate document, the meeting minutes. But happy to talk to the people who can make sure we're in compliance with what we're supposed to do. In terms of trip to Israel, I think that was discussed in another division. It's something that we obviously have interest in our division, but there are no plans that I'm aware of right now.
Thank you. And of course, Jonathan is standing in for David Mendoza-Wolfson, so he hasn't prepared the minutes, and usually details are given. Deanna, your question to Jonathan.
Unmute, right, done it. Deanna Levine, I represent B'nai B'rith UK on the Board of Deputies, and today, thank you, we have as an observer Jeremy Havardi, who is the director of the B'nai B'rith LBIA, London Bureau of International Affairs within B'nai B'rith. He has asked me to, as my constituent, one of many, to raise this question with you. And it fits in very nicely with Jonathan's statement, report. This is his question. Does the sacking of Jaroslaw Nowak, the former Polish government's plenipotentiary for Jewish affairs, show that the government in Warsaw has no interest in addressing concerns over its Holocaust restitution law and the mainstreaming of anti-Semitism more generally?
It's funny you say that, because I think I mentioned Lawrence Ray, and I think he gave our team a little bit of a memo, and apologies if it was somebody other than Lawrence, about that sacking. And it's very concerning. And it seems like in Poland, there's a bit of 2 steps forward, 3 steps back on addressing all kinds of concerns. One of the challenges we have in our working group is, who do we reach out to? Who's actually a good interlocutor for a lot of these concerns. We just don't want to be howling at the wind. I think we've got a lot of expertise on that working group, and we will try to find ways to actually have that working group not be just a talking shop, and working with staff and with all the great contacts that we have from deputies with people on the ground, find a way to do something that's actually productive. But as I say, it's just been launched, and but we do take note and frankly alarm of that sacking.
Thank you. Last question that you can take, Paul Hart, please.
Hi, Jonathan. I take it you've taken over from Gary Mond on the education division.
I'm sorry, Paul. We haven't got someone else elected. I don't think that's a really fair question.
Oh,
Jonathan.
I just wanted to know, as Gary granted me observership for that division, would I still have it?
This is the international division right now we're talking about.
Oh, my apologies.
Offline. Thank you. Thank you. Come on, give Jonathan a hand, everyone. He did very well in chairing the meeting. Well done. It's not easy. Thank you. And the next vice chair, we also hope to wish him well done, Andrew Gilbert, who will now be chairing the Communities and Education Division statement. Over to you, Andrew.
Yeah, good morning, Deputies. Thank you, President. I just wanted to pick up a few things that other people had spoken about. Jay Chirara's point on Hustings Manifesto, the Defence Division, Danielle, doing a lot of work, I'm sure Amanda will refer to there, but on the Hustings side, lots going on. And just note London Jewish Forum, taking stuff in London, I'm sure regional rep councils, having meetings with future Jewish councillors potentially, having meetings with, and doing lots of work and preparing. I think in London we'll probably have about 15 to 20 hustings coming up. Jewish Way of Life exhibition, thank you, Susan, great plans coming on that. I really think we can update things, and I want to give credit there. Israel trip, yes, Jerry, let's all make it happen. I want to commend Gary Mond, who did chair our division and did a lot of work, and the Israel trip was something he was passionate about, and I hope that will unite us across the board, and we'll be able to get a large number of us going out to Israel, and in a slightly more normal slightly post-COVID period. And just Paul Hart on observers very quickly. Paul, I'd like to see, particularly whilst we're doing things on Zoom, as many observers as possible behaving themselves in meetings, contributing constructively to our meetings. And I'm sure at the February meeting, which I think I'm probably going to still be chairing, I will be welcoming anyone that wants to join us as there, including your good self. Any questions there?
You've got 2 questions, and then
that's
we'll
right.
move on. 3 questions, and that will be it, because we're running.
Okay, Mike Reich, Michael. You do need to unmute, Michael.
It's not Michael's fault.
Yes, I've done it this time. I'm sorry, I had to change computer from before. I just want to repeat what I was otherwise going to say to Marie. I also wanted to commend very much Gary, particularly on the fact that he's set up so many groups and working groups on the educational side. And I just hope that this will be continued within this division, especially bearing in mind what we've been discussing this morning, to do education within Muslim communities, maybe to the Muslim Council of Great Britain, try to get us in that we can set up courses for them, which will help, we hope, to reduce the amount of supposed anti-Semitism that is greater within the Muslim communities than in other faiths. Let's try and take some action to reduce that situation, please.
Mike, I think it's very important we pick this up, and there are wonderful organisations, particularly like Stand Up, that are going into schools and together with Muslims trying to confront this, and we've got to give those organisations backing. That's a project with Maccabi backed by MOPAC, and we'll look forward to picking that up. Thank you very much, Michael. Sheila?
Be very brief, because we're running out.
Sheila.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, very brief, always, Marie. I just want to commend Andrew, first of all, for picking up the reins. Gary's gone. Andrew chaired the last meeting. You were amazing, Andrew. Thank you so much. And the way the work thrust at you, you know, and for picking up on what Susan said about the education, the outreach. I'm working my socks off leading, you know, observers are playing such a big part in the working groups. And we may have lost Sarah Perlmutter, but we have Dawn Waterman now as Director of Operations. We're looking to recruit more help on the staff with the outreach education. So reassurance, everybody, the working groups, Andrew, the staff, everybody is really working very hard to address this issue. Thank you.
And you. Thank you, Sheila. Rosalind. Just wait till you come off mute, yeah.
Hello, Rosalind Lewis, Kingston Surbiton District Synagogue. I'm an observer and on communities and education, and very involved with Holocaust education. I was encouraged to speak on it by Gillian and by Gary, and I wanted to really encourage other deputies to do a Holocaust education in their areas. At Kingston, we have worked very closely with the Liberal Synagogue for 14 years. This year, because their children can't come to the synagogue, the schools have asked us to go to them. And we have a very good program, and I would love to share it with other deputies so that they can get cracking for next year and educate schools in their area. Because it's really important, because for the most part, they are all interested and they really know very little, the youngsters, they're 14 years old, about the Holocaust. I'd love to discuss it with you.
Yeah, Rosa, we'll pick it up. I'd love to pick it up. I'm going to Richmond's Holocaust Memorial Day programme, and I do think we should be taking a note of what all our communities are doing and try to bring together, take notice of that programme. We'll do a note out to deputies, asking them to say what their communities are doing, and let's spread that round so we can have a really good record afterwards of all the work that was done by all our communities for Holocaust Memorial Day.
Thank you, Andrew, and also thank you also for giving an excellent report. So well done to the two vice presidents, and thank you for all of your questions. Over to you, please, Amanda. Will you present your report for the Defence and Interfaith Relations Group Division? You also, I'm sorry, are very short of time, about 10 minutes. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, deputies. I want to thank all deputies for providing us with your insights and perspectives on the BBC. At the Defence Division in January, we were joined by the Chair and the Vice Chair of the International Division, and we discussed this widely. Marie and Michael and others of the professional team also consulted widely to take views from communal colleagues to help us in the run-up to the meeting we had last week with Tim Davey. And as Maria said, we'll update you further when we've heard back from the BBC on a final decision of the Executive Complaint Unit on the Oxford Street incident. Separately, deputies have told us very clearly that anti-Semitism on campus is one of the most important things that we need to work on right now. And we continue to advocate alongside UJS, the chaplaincy and others for all Jewish students and academics to feel safe and secure on campus. I'll be attending the upcoming Anti-Semitism Summit this week, hosted by the Higher Education Minister, Michelle Donnellan, which will examine why instances of anti-Semitism are currently increasing in higher education, and be advocating on behalf of you all and the Board of Deputies. I'm also grateful, we've heard a lot from people about the working groups and being observers on divisions. I'm also grateful for all the interest by deputies to be involved with the Defence Division work. Beyond division members, we've already engaged many deputies on working groups, and there are 24 deputies who have specifically asked to either be co-opted or be an observer on the Defence Division. I'll be reaching out again to all of those and to any other deputy that wants to be involved in our work to let you know more about the working groups that we've set up so that you can join those groups. We have working groups on media bias monitoring, on higher education, on interfaith, on local government and devolved communities, on anti-Semitism in sports and culture, and a joint working group with the International Division on BDS. We've also planning to hold regular open meetings on anti-Semitism, and the next meeting of that will happen towards the end of February. So please, deputies, please be in touch if you'd like to be involved in any of those activities. I thank you all for the work that you're doing so far. And just to confirm, because it wasn't in our report, that our next full division meeting is on the 7th of February. And so now I'll open to
time for
questions.
3 questions, Amanda, so that Ben can present his report.
Okay. I can see that I've got questions from people who have already spoken, but first of all, Simon, to you. You're still on mute, I'm afraid.
No, I'm not. Hopefully.
Can hear you.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Good. I think Amanda may have answered my question. I've been wanting to become an observer on the Defence Committee since I joined. And I would just like to be notified of all the meetings because I would like to attend them. And that's really it as far as I'm concerned. I've had a long history in certainly anti-Semitism and hopefully dealing with it, or not, because it's very difficult to deal with. I would just like to be involved as a new deputy. Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. I think I have responded, but we've been in correspondence on this. I absolutely want everybody who can to be involved on the issues they care about. Lawrence and Tom, I'm going to skip you because I haven't heard from Karen and Laura, and I'd quite like to take questions from people that haven't been able to speak yet, but please do reach out separately. So Karen, over to you. I'm sure that you're being unmuted, but we can't hear you yet. Now we can.
Thank you, Amanda. Karen Solomon, Cheetham Hebrew Congregation. When the board met with the BBC, was it asked why they're biased against Israel and what we can do against that anti-Israel bias against Israel? Because this does trickle down into the Jewish community and does cause more anti-Semitism.
I think Marie was very clear that we're going to give you a full update on what was discussed and what came out of the meeting when we hear back from the BBC in full. I'd really like to leave it for a full and open statement. Thanks. Laura.
Thank you. Last question.
Sorry, it wouldn't let me unmute. Thank you, Amanda. I'd love to be here today. A couple of things, particularly focusing on Jewish-Muslim relations, if I may. We heard a lot about it today. I don't need to add any more except to say that Nisan Nashim is probably the only organization in the country nationally working on Jewish-Muslim relations specifically. And it's not a Jewish organization, so it can't be a member of the Board of Deputies, but please do involve us in the conversations around this because we have extremely good connections and good experience. Secondly, related to that, we have all seen today, and has not been mentioned, the attacks on Nusrat Ghani and her assertion that she was attacked for being Muslim. She hasn't said, but I'm quite clear it's true that she's also attacked because she's a Muslim woman. So we know we saw this with Louise Ellman, we saw it with Ruth Smith and with Luciana. We know that the minority women particularly get enormous amounts of attacks. So I don't know if it's formally for the Board of Deputies to support her, but I would like to raise it because I think it's very important. We've talked a lot about Muslim-Jewish relations and we haven't talked about this issue, which is in the press today. And I think the fact that we haven't talked about it is really not good. So I want to raise it, and I'm sure, Amanda, that you will agree that it's something very important. And just one last tiny point, Holocaust Memorial Day has come up a lot today, putting on my other hat as chair of Holocaust Memorial Day. And Marie, of course, is on our board and is very supportive too. So just to encourage everybody, if you're We've got a local event, get to the local event. Otherwise, come to the national event at 7 o'clock online, hmd.org.uk on Thursday, and light a candle in your window, and encourage everyone to do it at 8 o'clock on Thursday as well. Because Jewish-Muslim relations.
Laura, you've been cut off because you ran out of time, but absolutely, I'm sure Marie, before we close, will give another plug for Holocaust Memorial Day.
I will.
Okay, thanks. I just want to respond to the 2 points you make. You know that I personally have been a big supporter of Nisan Nashim and will continue to do so. And of course, we utterly condemn any bigotry that Nusrat Ghani has experienced, and expect that this morning's news will be treated with the utmost seriousness. The board has a strong relationship with her, and we're due to have a meeting with her very soon to discuss our support for the plight of the Uyghurs, because that's something that she's been a leading voice on in Parliament. And so, of course, it's important, and I truly believe your points about the intersectionality between hatred, racism, and being a woman need to be addressed, and I'll do everything I can do on behalf of the board to make sure that we do address it. Thanks, Laura.
Thank you, Amanda. That's excellent. And absolutely, we have worked very well and in partnership with Nusrat Ghani in relation to the Uyghurs. She's been very, very diligent and very, very helpful. And we, of course, need to support her. Thank you. Ben, you have approximately 8 minutes. Could you please present your report?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks very much, Marie, and thank you, everyone. I don't have a lot of time, so I will just run through a few things briefly, and then there's something I do need to take a minute or two on. First of all, obviously, people have seen the Treasurer's report. It's a financial update at the end of November. We're hoping to get December and therefore the full year wrapped up this coming week. And I hope to bring a much fuller report, including hopefully an update on investments, an update on the budget for 2022, the next meeting. So I'll set that one to aside for the moment. Thank you very much to all the deputies who have been helping with the common contribution, who have been putting things in their short emails, who have been speaking at council meetings, who have been otherwise assisting the F&O and the board's professional staff in their work. We've got off to a very good start to the year. These are the busiest couple of months for the board in terms of bringing in the common contribution, and all your support is sort of really appreciated. I mentioned at the end of the report, but there are a lot of papers. We really hope that the next meeting, the February meeting, will be our first trial hybrid meeting with some people in person and an online component. We are working out the details of that at the moment. These are all obviously COVID dependent, but inshallah, if we continue to come out of COVID the way we are to date, we should be able to do that within all the necessary laws and restrictions and safety precautions, and we go from there. The thing I need to spend a little bit of time on, it is in the report, but it needs a minute or two, is the Deputies Agreement and more generally data protection. Now, we've just renewed our insurance. The insurance covers certain things that deputies do representing the organisation in certain circumstances. One of those circumstances being that they are acting sort of under the supervision or under the, I forget the exact wording, but that the board, that they are cognizant of their responsibilities and that the board has made them aware of these things. This is accomplished through the Deputies Agreement form. It is very important that deputies who haven't returned it sign and return it for our internal processes in the unlikely event that any of you need to draw on our insurance, and also so we have documented consent to the code of conduct, confidentiality, to all these useful things. So it's going to be recirculated again this coming week. And can I ask everyone to please just send it back in good order. I also need to speak very briefly about data protection more generally. In September, deputies were sent a list of all deputies and their contact details for the purposes of divisional elections. Deputies were also given an option to opt out from being contacted for canvassing if they didn't want to be contacted. Last week, an updated list of deputies was sent out. That was names and constituencies only, because we don't have documented consent from deputies to share their information with our deputies for any reason including elections, let alone for other reasons as well. Under data protection law and practice, deputies are only allowed to use the information to be given to them for the specific purpose it is being provided, i.e. elections. Deputies as individuals have a right to control their information and how it's used. There have been, in the last couple of days, bulk emails to large numbers of deputies. It is, I will say at this point, unclear whether these are misuse of data, and will follow up on a case-by-case basis. However, going forward, deputies should be aware that the contact details have only been given for formal board elections and should not be used to contact deputies en masse. If deputies do want to send something to everyone, they should do it via the board staff. There's a weekly email that goes out. There's lots of opportunities to send stuff out. If deputies collectively would like to move to a position where they can be contacted by any deputy for any reason, I am happy to take that back to the FNO. We're happy to circulate a form, get permissions and so forth. But for the moment, that does not exist, and deputies should conduct themselves accordingly. I will take a couple of questions. I see David, and I see David's top of my list, but I see Joe has his hand as well. So let me do David and then Joe.
Total we can have. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good morning. A very brief question, which I hope you can answer, Ben, or perhaps refer to the President. Has there been any progress or any developments following the President's having asked Netflix to finance and produce a documentary on the anti-Semitism of Roald Dahl, and her statement at the time that their failure to do so will not go unnoticed? Thank you.
I'm going to pass that one to Marie, but I know she's speaking again in a second, so maybe I can take Joe, and then Marie, you can wrap that up. Mr. Millis. Mr. Schmetterling, oh, Joe, here we are, yeah.
We can't have any more questions, just Joe, we're out of time.
All right, email me.
Yeah, this is very, very brief. I'd like to thank Marie, all the HOs and the staff of the Board of Deputies for the past 2 weeks, which have been, I would imagine, the most horrendous pressure you've all been under. I think today, the handling of the debate earlier was absolutely fantastic. It could have got really out of hand, but thank you so much for handling it the way you have all done. Thank you.
Got time for Dory, very quick, if you're quick, Dory. Thank you. Dory might have to go.
Thank you very much. I have a very quick question. What progress, if any, have we made in actually moving back into own freehold or long leasehold property? Thank you.
Our lease with UJA runs out in March. Sorry, let me rephrase that. We will be moving out of Triana News in March. We will be taking temporary staff and meeting rooms for a few months while we look at longer term options. As deputies are aware, one of the options on the table is the new World Orc development in Camden. We're in discussion with them, we're in discussion with other people. We hope to have a permanent home again come the end of the year. And I'm going to apologise to Vicky, but I'm going to pass back to Marie at 12:28.
Thank you, and apologies to anyone who's not been able to speak. If you let us know for next time, we'll try and prioritise you. In relation to Netflix, they have certainly not agreed to make a documentary about the anti-Semitism of Roald Dahl, and this is certainly not going to be abandoned. It's going to be in our strategic plan, and it's something that I personally feel very, very strongly about. Such a writer with such an influence around the world, that absolutely has to be addressed. I've got some condolences which I would like to read out as well. To our past president, Vivian Weinman, on the death of his aunt, the Holocaust survivor and educator, Frieda Weinman, we give you our condolences. And to the family, please, of the former treasurer of Clive Lawton, and also our sincerest condolences, our deputy Shmuel Joseph Davidson, on the passing of Yaakov Davidson, his father. And if you want to be in touch with any Shiva details, can you please contact Lauren. And again, our sincerest condolences to you. I also want to congratulate deputies. I think Joe Mellis is right. It could have been a very, very ugly situation. Everybody, whatever their views, thank you very much for the way that you all conducted yourself today. And it shows that the board is democracy in action. Everyone has had their say. And I would like to thank you for all of your contribution to the debate. We have had some very serious issues in the last few weeks, which are ongoing. And I want to thank all of my honorary officers and the staff team. And I'd like to name the staff team today because we can't do anything without our team, and they deserve recognition. So we've got Michael Widge, as you know, our chief executive, but we've also got Sarah Radovan, Sarah Hussein, who's our executive PA, Dawn Waterman and Andrew Lee, who have been helping today. So I want to say great thanks to the staff team. I think we've run very, very smoothly. I want to thank you all again for your contribution. Thank you for everything that you are doing in your communities. We want to listen to deputies. We want to take on board the things that you want to do. Okay, we want to make sure that you all feel included. We're all working to the same goal. So thank you very much, and looking forward to seeing you soon, and stay in touch. Thank you. Can the board trustees